Hey everybody, I'm Damien Atto and welcome back to the channel. This video is part 2 of the SQLite main database file header. In part 1, I discussed all the entries that are important from a forensic standpoint, and in this video we'll actually look at the main database file header at the hex level. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, the link to the video will be in the description. If you've been following me on Twitter, you know I've been doing a little bit of research into the Microsoft To-Do application, which has a SQLite database on the back end. So I thought it'd be fitting that we take a look at the header in the To-Do SQLite database file. I'm going to be using WinHex to look at the file header. I find this is a really great tool if you want to get down and dirty into the hex level of a file. If you recall from part 1, the header for the SQLite main database file is 100 bytes in length. And as you can see here, I've mapped out all the relevant offsets. So starting from offset 0, the first 16 bytes, this is going to be your header string, SQLite format 3. And it's these 16 bytes which our automated forensic tools use to identify a SQLite database even if it doesn't have an extension. At offset 16, we have the page size, it's 2 bytes in length. Here our page size is 4096. And this is common for Microsoft applications that utilize SQLite, such as Windows 10 notifications, timeline, photo app, etc. Moving across, offsets 18 and 19, these are your read-write versions. This has a value of 2 in each of these offsets. So this tells me that the To-Do SQLite database uses write-ahead log. If this was a 1, then it would be rollback journal. Offset 20, these are your number of reserved bytes at the end of each page in the database. The value is 0, so the entire 4096 bytes of each page can be used. Moving across, offset 24, this is your file change counter that's incremented each time the database is updated, aka a transaction has been committed to the database. My file change counter is set to 3. And as this database uses write-ahead login, this tells me that there has been 3 while checkpoint operations that have occurred where all the records from the write-ahead log have been committed to the main database file. If this database uses rollback journaling, then it would be the number of transactions that have successfully been committed to the database. Moving across, offset 28 for 4 bytes. Here we have the size of the database in pages. We have 57 total pages in this database, and this includes all the different SQLite page types. Offset 32, this will tell us the page number for the first free list page in the database. Because this is a fairly new database, we don't have any free list pages, so this value is 0. But if there was a value in here, you could go to this page number and get a list of all the page numbers for all free list pages in the database. If you do encounter a database with heavy usage, but these 4 bytes are still 0, then this is typically an indicator that auto vacuuming may be enabled. So move across to offset 36. This will dictate the number of free list pages in the database. Because my 4 bytes from offset 32 are 0, then this value will also be 0. But typically, this will indicate the number of free list pages that there are within your database that you could potentially recover records from. Next, from offset 40, we have the schema cookie. The value here is 32. So this tells me that there's been a total of 32 schema changes for this database. When I see an update to an application that uses SQLite, the first thing I do is come to this offset and see if the value is different from the previous version of the application. If it is different, then I know something has changed and there could potentially be additional user data that's added to the database, and I can update my scripts to parse that information. At offset 52, these 4 bytes determine whether auto vacuum is enabled. Here my value is 0, so it's disabled. But if it was a non-zero value, then auto vacuum would be enabled, and at the end of each transaction, all my free list pages will be truncated, which means I lose the ability to carve records from the free list, as there will be no free list pages. Because these 4 bytes are 0, I know that the 4 bytes from offset 64 will also be 0. These are the bytes that determine whether incremental vacuuming is enabled. So for incremental vacuuming to be enabled, auto vacuuming must also be enabled. If we move back up to offset 52, these 4 bytes determine what text encoding is used for all text strings stored in the database. These 4 bytes have a value of 1, so I know the to-do SQLite database stores all text strings as UTF-8. If it was a 2, it would be UTF-16LE. If it was a 3, UTF-16BE. And the final 4 bytes in the main database file header is your SQLite version number. Here the value is 3,025,003. So when translated, this database was last updated using SQLite version number 3.25.3.